Hello, Feuzion News. My name is Alex Feuzion, host of Feuzion News, and we have another big show for you right now. What I did, we had a little audio problem, so what I'm going to do is going to be a little differently. I'm here live, but a recorded interview with Steve Perrault. He's one of the hosts of the Section 10 podcast alongside Jared Krappis. So I talked to Steve earlier tonight, just a few minutes ago, and here is the interview of what he had to say about the Red Sox big victory, of the World Series victory, about now the rapidly growing Section 10 podcast, as well as, what exactly it's like working with Jared Krappis and their teamwork together since 2015 when they started the Section 10 podcast. So I'm going to play this interview for you right now. But before we do that, I just want to say thank you for all the listeners for joining me here on Feuzion News this week. It's been a great week. I'm excited for our shows next week. Possibly, we'll see one of my biggest interviews to date next week as well. So stay tuned for that. And if you're not following me on Twitter, follow me at Alex Fuse as well for more updates on this show and some MLB news, NFL news, whatever I want to talk about. Reach out to me on social media as well. So be sure to do that, and also be a subscriber of Feuzion News. When we hit 600 subscribers, I will be doing a special giveaway. Now, without further ado, I'm going to turn it back over to the interview. The reason why you guys are listening to this show with Steve Perrault. Here it is. I am on the phone with the one and only Mr. Steve Perrault. He is on the Section 10 podcast along with Jared Krappis. So, Steve, very big few weeks here in Boston. The Red Sox are hot off a World Series victory here in Boston. So, knowing that, once again, I'm a Yankees fan. If you are just joining me and never listened to the shows, I'm a Yankee fan, and Steve, of course, followed the Red Sox. So, I was joking that this was a fraud win for the Red Sox, and I'm just joking. I think they had a fantastic season, but just looking back at this season, it was one of the greatest seasons of all time for any MLB team. So just covering this Red Sox team all season long, what was one moment for you that stood out most?
Good question. I mean, it's crazy being at the point that we're at now, where the team won 108 games. They went 11-3 in the postseason, and then it's like, boom, they just won the championship. Like, it's never, as a Red Sox fan, it's never this easy. If I were to think of one moment, it's probably Mookie Betts hitting a grand slam on like a 14 or 15 pitch at bat against J.A. Happ. I think it happened in July or June or July, and it just kind of stuck out. Mookie was as excited as I had ever seen him after hitting a home run. He was flipping out, going around the bases. He was so excited, he almost tripped over and fell on his face. But I've never seen him that excited. I've never seen Fenway really that rowdy for like a regular season game. That was kind of the moment where you knew you had something special, at least for me. I mean, the team was going nuts. David Price pitched pretty well that night. And, from there on out, I mean, they dominated all year. They didn't lose 4 games in a row all season. And from that point on, it just really felt like they rolled all the way through the playoffs.
Steve, I know you cover this team very closely, but I was actually, remember when the unfortunate happening of when the Red Sox swept the New York Yankees in Boston. I was at that Sunday night game when the Yankees had the lead going into the bottom of the ninth, and then the Red Sox came back, tied the game, and ended up winning in extra innings. And I went to that game with my dad, who was a big Red Sox fan. And I felt like I was living in 2004 all over again. And it was just a bad night, bad experience for a Yankee fan. But that was kind of the whole story for the Red Sox season. They had the ability to come back from any, really, if they were trailing, you always believed this Red Sox team could come back. One of the biggest eye-opening things that I saw about this Red Sox team going into the playoffs, everyone was nervous about their bullpen. Everyone was talking about, their bullpen isn't as good, but they're hoping the offense can outweigh the bullpen. But let's be honest here, their bullpen was the key point to the reason why they won the World Series. So looking at that, how does that affect the offseason for the Red Sox, looking at their free agency, especially knowing that Craig Kimbrell is going to be a free agent? He was a big factor in the World Series. He pitched with the way the Red Sox really wanted him to. So going with that factor, where does the Red Sox really want to look at the bullpen in the offseason here?
Yeah, the bullpen is going to be the focus in the offseason. I mean, Craig Kimbrell, I think he's going to be gone. I think it's a scenario where it's like, thanks for everything. Have a good one. Someone's going to offer him a huge deal. He'll likely take it. You got your ring, and that's kind of all we really needed from Kimbrell. I mean, he wasn't that reliable in the postseason. Feels like every time he came in, he gave up a run or was close to giving up one or multiple runs. So Kimbrell, take care, have a good one. I'm always concerned about who the next guy is going to be a closer. That's a position that you just need a rock. You need a guy at the back end of the bullpen that is consistently going to close the door. You want it to be an 8-inning game every single night. And Durgan Feldman's a guy coming up. We call him Dalton Furbush on the show, but Durbin Feltman is a guy that I think could potentially be a setup man for the Red Sox as early as next year out of TCU. He throws an easy 98, 99-mile-an-hour fastball. He's got great movement on his off-speed stuff, so I wouldn't be shocked if he came up. The Red Sox have to target guys, though. They cannot go through this offseason and expect that the bullpen they have now is going to get them back to where they were. You also have to factor in Nathan Eovaldi. I mean, he became the greatest pitcher on the planet in October, so they kind of lucked out with Eovaldi being that good in October. Chris Sale gave you some innings out of the bullpen. David Price gave you some innings out of the bullpen. So, yes, the Red Sox bullpen was good, but it was also very much aided by starting rotation guys that were not in the starting rotation for the playoffs. So that needs to be the focus. The bullpen needs to be the focus. Dombrowski knows that. I mean, they dodged a bullet. The guys that they relied on, Carson Smith, Tyler Thornberry, the guys they brought in here thinking they were going to be the core pieces for the bullpen, yet Timberwolves did absolutely nothing for them. So Dombrowski's going to be a little hesitant to the guys he brings in, but it's definitely their weakness right now as they head into the 2019 season.
Look, the Red Sox didn't have an eighth-inning guy all playoffs. You know, they always relied on their eighth-inning guy, on guys like Rick Porcello, Nathan Eovaldi, David Price, and even Chris Sale. And those are their starting rotation guys that they use, you know, all the time. So just looking at that, you know, okay, look, especially going into this offseason, like you just said, how reliant are they going to be on Ryan Brazier and Joe Kelly going into this offseason?
Yeah, Joe Kelly's a tough one. I remember we were lucky enough to have him in studio for Section 10 this season. It was a perfect time, too. It was right before his first meeting against the Yankees after the brawl in New York. And he came in, I still vividly remember this line. I'll never forget this line. He said, "When I throw the ball, I don't know where it's going." And I still can't believe he said that. And he's a guy that has shown that his command can kind of be all over the place. Now, again, he's another guy like Eovaldi that had a really good postseason, and that's the perfect time to have a good postseason. You're going right into free agency. But I don't know. I don't think I'm not going to be upset if Joe Kelly's not back. I mean, it would be nice if he is, but again, you could potentially have a guy like you had in 2018, where for the first half of the year he was great, second half of the year for the most part he was not good, and out of nowhere he kind of figured it out in October. He had like an 8.5 ERA in September, down the stretch there leading into the playoffs. So again, that's the guy that Cora and the Red Sox kind of lucked out on in October. So I could see him getting a big deal from somebody else to be another bullpen guy. He might even he's not factoring out that he could be a starter again. So I think he's trying to up his value as much as he possibly can on the free agency market. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Brazier being back would be nice. I think Brandon Workman's time might be up here, but we'll see if he's going to be back or not. He didn't make the World Series roster. Somehow Drew Pomeranz did. I don't know how the hell he made the roster, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's going to be guys out there that I'm sure Dombrowski's already looking at GM meetings now. I'm sure internally the Red Sox are talking about alternatives for Kimbrel, Kelly. You go down the line, guys like losing the starting rotation guys and go back into the starting rotation. They are no longer in your bullpen as they were in October. So we'll see. But again, like the bullpen's the focus. The bullpen has to be the focus because for the most part, offensively, you're fine. You're not really losing anybody. So the bullpen needs to be the focus.
Yeah, switching gears now, let's talk about your career, especially as a sports broadcaster. And this is one I love to ask, any reporter that comes on my show here. If you could describe with one word, how would you describe sports broadcasting?
Complex. I would say it's complex. There's from what we do, we're in a unique part of sports media, doing Section 10, doing a Red Sox podcast. I love doing it. It's been about 3 years now, 3+ years that I've been doing it with Jared. I know Pete Blackburn was on earlier on, and we've had John Spinelberg join, and now Coley is a big part of the show as well. So I've kind of seen everybody that's come and gone with the show. Jared and I have probably been definitely been the most consistent too since it started back in 2015. But it's confusing, man. There's a lot that goes into it. There is a lot that goes into producing this show, hosting this show. Jared puts a lot of work in hosting as well and getting guests. And we talk ideas all the time, trying to figure out what the next best segment's going to be. Hey, this was good. Let's scrap that. Hey, that was great. Like, let's try to do more of that. So it's complex. There's a lot that goes into it. You have to try to factor in who you're talking to when you're interviewing people. You can't ask certain people the same questions you would ask the other guy. So there's a lot. There's a lot of layers that go into it, but we've settled and kind of made a product here that people like. So we're going to try to ride this as much as we can.
Is there one segment that you've ever done or Jared has done that you personally have liked, but just didn't go over that well and just made it, put it on the cutting block after the show?
That's a good question. We had one, I think it was called Guess That Stat. And I would search a stat. This was in the offseason last year. In the offseason, we do one show a week instead of 2 shows a week during the season. And there are times, especially last year, when the Red Sox only, won one playoff game and then we're out in the ALDS once again, and we had to try to fill some airtime. But we didn't get that stat, and I would come up with a random Red Sox stat, and it was between Feuzion and Jared. And Jared, I mean, similar to myself, our lives kind of center around the Red Sox and really have since a young age. So Jared would just destroy Feuzion basically every time. He would have the answer essentially within 5 seconds every time I would ask the question. And we scrapped that one because it wasn't a fair game. It was an unfair field, and Feuzion definitely realized that he was not going to win basically any of those rounds. So we had to scrap that pretty quick.
You talk about working with Jared Carabas. What is it exactly like a day-to-day life operation working with him?
Jared and I have had a solid relationship. I mean, we've had our ups and downs, but I think the best thing that we do collectively is realize that the show always comes first. We make sure that the decisions we make are in the best interest of the podcast and the best interest of our listeners. And it can be tricky. I'm full-time at Bleacher. I work in the app. Jared is obviously full-time with Barstool. So that has caused some issues, caused some, I don't know, it's presented some hurdles for us over the last couple of years. But at the end of the day, we do the best thing, the best that we possibly can for the show to make a good product, to make something that people want to hear. And we try to keep it as fresh as possible. We try to, get as many guests as we can, do guests, not repeat guests. We try to have new segments. We try to just give you the kind of talk that you're not going to get on sports radio. We're not that negative. We're a pretty positive bunch. We also keep it light. We're pretty sarcastic, so we're not really trying to grill these guys. We get players on the podcast or anything like that. So, I'd say our relationship is solid. I mean, it probably could be better, could be worse, but we're in a position now where we've made a good product, and we feel good, confident, and good about it.
You bring up the point where you've been doing this podcast since 2015. What do you have pictured? And we talked about this earlier in the show. I'm from upstate New York, so unfortunately, your podcast isn't heard that much in upstate New York, unless maybe there's a couple of Yankee fans that are maybe turned into Red Sox fans now. But now that I'm in school in Massachusetts, I hear you guys every single day, and of course, whenever I listen to you guys. So it's interesting to hear it. And it's funny. I'm like, oh yeah, Section 10 podcast. It's grown so much here in Massachusetts and around the country and the world. Did you anticipate this to happen when you first started the show back in 2015?
No, not at all. Not at all. I was working at Nesson at the time when this show was started, when Jared and Pete started this show. And it wasn't until about 10 episodes in that I actually heard about the podcast. It was because Gary Stresky, who was also working at Nesson at the time, was on the show, and he retweeted it or he had tweeted about it. And so I'm like, oh, it's Section 10. Like, let me check this out. Red Sox podcast. I'm a huge Red Sox guy. Let me check this out. And the second I knew I was going to get involved, this might sound random, but the second I knew is when I heard the intro to the show. Because for the intro of the podcast, it was the PA guy of the Red Sox. That was, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Section 10 podcast. So I knew they were legit, or at least legit enough, because they had gotten the PA guy of the Red Sox to do the intro to the Section 10 podcast. I was like, oh, this isn't just, some random show. So I reached out to Jared via LinkedIn, actually, which is extremely random. There was no other way I could get in touch with him, and kind of the rest is history. But I don't know. I couldn't see it getting to the point it is now. I mean, we interviewed JD Martinez in the dugout the day before the ALDS. He gave us 45 minutes. And I was just kind of I almost was like caught daydreaming for a minute or so while we were doing that. I was like, this is kind of insane that we're doing this right now. This is, you could argue, the most important player on the Red Sox, giving us almost an hour of his time the day before probably the biggest game of his life. And we're in the Sox dugout. And now when we do the interviews, I'm pretty prepared. I'm always prepared, but I'm not really thrown off at all. I think earlier on when we got players, it was like, whoa, we're getting players here. This is pretty cool. But we're pretty used to it at this point. And again, the goal is to provide the best content we can. There's a lot of podcasts out there, so we have to make sure that we stay ahead of everybody, at least in our direct field.
Who's your dream interview on the Section 10 podcast?
What was that?
Who's your dream interview? Someone that you would love? Yeah.
Dream interview. Nomar Garcia-Pera. 100% it would be Nomar. That is my idol growing up. Timmy Pinkerton Jr. Were my two favorite guys growing up. I got to meet Griffey at Bleacher Report a couple of years ago. That was great. But yeah, Nomar would be. He's still my guy. He's still my go-to in terms like when we talk about top guests that we want to have. Jared and I basically a couple times a year will go over a list of top players that we want to have on the show, and Nomar is always my number one. Because of scheduling conflict, I wasn't able to do the David Ortiz one when he was in the studio with Jared and Coley. Sadly, that was only like 8 or 9 minutes. He didn't really have a lot of time. So we still need like a full sit down with Poppy. But yeah, Nomar would be 100% my number one guy that I would want to interview. I would hope that goes 3 hours. Like I could talk Nomar forever.
I think if I could suggest someone that you would to get on the show would have to be the voice of the New York Yankees, John Sterling. I think that interview.
Sterling, yeah.
I think that would be a lot of fun.
If you do it, I'd be down to do it. Absolutely. I mean, we talk about all his home run calls and everything. I would not be opposed to that. We wanted to have Don Orsillo on. We're big Don Orsillo guys, but Orsillo's not as keen on the idea of coming on because naturally we're going to ask about Nesson, and he doesn't really want to talk about that. And I totally don't blame him at all. So I don't think that's going to happen, sadly. But yeah, I'd be down for Sterling. Yeah, if he wants to do it, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Steve, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to come on my podcast tonight and talk some Red Sox, your career, and of course the Section 10 podcast as well. Where can the Fuse Nation, if they aren't following you on Twitter or Section 10 podcast, where can they listen to you and follow you on Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter's just @Steve_Perrault, and then Section 10 podcast @Section 10 Pod. So yeah, definitely follow those if you know.
Thank you again, Steve, for coming on. I greatly appreciate it.
All right, appreciate it. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah. All right, Fuse Nation, you heard it from the one and only Steve Perrault from Bleacher Report, and of course the Section 10 podcast alongside Jared Carabas. It was great catching up with Steve. I haven't talked to him in a few months, but a great friend of the show as well. Once again, Fuse Nation, I want to say thank you for listening to this episode of Fusion News, and I want to say thank you for listening to every single show this week. Once again, be sure to be a subscriber of Fusion News and also follow me on Twitter @AlexFuse as well. Stay tuned for big shows next week as well. I'm very excited. Jerry Krasnick will also be on, and just a couple big interviews. Stay tuned for maybe who, oh baby, who will be on next week. Thanks again for listening, and I will be seeing you very soon. Thanks for listening.